we're going to continue with the layers palette and primarily focus on the FX or special effects. But even before we do that, I want to pick up on the previous video, if assuming you watched that, and we had talked about a clipping mask and how we can apply the adjustment layer to a specific layer, and we can also use that concept of attaching one layer to another and using the clipping mask concept to hide or clip the edges of an image. And I am going to show you how we can do that. Notice here we've got the duck image, and we have the duck in front of this smaller dune image here. And I am going to essentially clip the edges of this duck with this rectangle or smaller dune image. And it's going to hide the edges of the duck, or more or less make it look like this duck is inside this rectangle, almost like a picture frame. And so it's very easy to do. And here, let's I'm going to just do it here with this duck. So you see that the duck is in front of this dune. All right? And essentially what we're going to do here is I am going to go to the duck. Okay? I'm going to go to the duck. And once again, I can either go up under Layer, create a clipping mask from here, or I could do what I showed you, which is that little shortcut, which is simply put my cursor in between the two, and Option or Alt on the PC. Okay. Oops. Let me go back and do something a little bit different here. Let me go to this version of the duck and put it here and click, and there you see the duck appears to be inside this picture frame, if you will, but in fact it is being clipped by the dune. So we've applied a clipping mask to these two images, and it hides the edges of the duck. And there you have it, okay? Now, let's pick up on the main point I wanted to talk about in this video, which is these FX. I'm going to go to this little rectangular, small dune image here, and drop down to the FX. And the first thing we're going to do is we'll add the old drop shadow. So I'll click on that, and it brings up the dialog box with these tools. And you can see that there are a couple of different things that we can do here. The first one is we can adjust the size of the shadow. Okay. We can adjust where the shadow is. Now, unique to this shadow is that we can simply come over onto the page and click and drag our tool and manually move the shadow around. Or, again, we could come over here and mess with this distance slider. We can mess with this angle here. But unique to this one tool, I can just manually bring it on over here, and I can soften it by changing the size of it. You can see right there. We can also mess with the opacity of it, lighten it and darken it. The color, it's black, but we don't have to accept it as black. We can go here and click on this, and quite often I will do things like shadows in a dark blue or something like that. It's just not quite as dirty or muddy, if you will, as it would be if it's black, even though it has the same general effect, okay? And there you have it. You can see very clearly the shadow has been added here. And there's a couple of other things. You'll just have to play with these different tools. I want to recommend one, however, this global light button. You're going to see this pop up in several of these different effect tools. And generally, you want to uncheck or turn off the global light button, because literally what it means is it's universal or globally. And if I have, in this case, a drop shadow on several different drop shadows on several different images on my canvas, and I go to adjust one of them, if the global light button has been left on, you adjust one of the shadows and it will affect all of the shadows of all the images in your canvas. And you generally don't want to do that. You're generally going to intuitively want to handle them independently. So I'm just suggesting that typically I turn off the global light button wherever I see it. I'm going to go over here to the left, and now let's add a little bit of bevel and emboss. So I'll click this on, and you can see immediately a bevel showed up here. And once again, I can mess with the depth of it. Okay. And the size of it, you can see. I can mess with this here, you see. I can mess with how thick it is. Alright. And once again, I could, here's the global light. I'm going to undo that. And then once again, I can adjust the lighting angle of the light. Okay. And we can mess with these contour settings here. Again, we can play with these. We can try some different things here. Okay. And you can see very clearly how that will change the look. Once again, we can change the color of it. Here are those filters I pointed out to you in the when we were originally talking about the layers. They pop up in a number of different places. But at any rate, you see here that we can add any or all of these effects. And there you have it, okay? Also, let me turn on something here. I've got a different... I made another copy of the duck a few minutes ago. And I did that because I wanted to show you something else. First off, let's look at our layers. And you can see here are the effects. And we can turn them on and off just by clicking the eyeball on and off. Okay. See, we can turn them on individually. We can sort of hide them. You can see here in the layers palette, we have, they show up as little FX, and I can turn the triangle here, and so they collapse, so that they're just not so many of them getting in your way. And that's kind of a nice little deal. And there's something else that's very, very useful, and that is we can duplicate any of the effects that you have set up on another image very quickly and very easily. And we can do that in this manner. Notice here I've got this other copy of the duck, and I'm going to add this same bevel and emboss and drop shadow to this other duck. And all I need to do is click on the effect that I want, in this case the drop shadow, and press my Option Alt key and drag it, and you see a little double-headed arrow up to this other duck layer, and drop it, and look, I just added the shadow onto this other duck. Here I'll do the bevel and emboss. I'll click on it and Option Alt, drag it up to the other duck, bingo, let go, and there you see very quickly I duplicated the bevel and the emboss and the drop shadow right on to this other image. It's as easy as that, okay? The last quick thing I want to show you with the layers before we stop is that we can group layers together. Group layers together so that we can control them together. What I mean by that is I'm going to select the dune image, the small dune. I'm going to either command or shift click these other layers. Okay, and now I'm going to come down to the last thing at the bottom that I want to show you here, this little locking tool. And by clicking this tool after selecting these images, look, these are now locked or grouped together. And what's that going to accomplish? Now when I move one of these images, look, all of them are moving together. The little dune, the big dune, and the one duck. And so by selecting your images, either shift clicking if they're next to each other, or command and PC control clicking, we can select the ones we want and then click this little locking device and it'll lock them together. We can undo that, and it went away, and now they are individual. Moving one or doing something to one will not affect all of the others. And it's as simple as that. There you go.